This Christmas, there's a lot that can kind of distract us. Gift lists. Do I send a Christmas card to every single person? What about teachers? What about my pets? What about grandpas and grandmas and bus drivers and that nice lady that makes us cookies at Christmas? Like, who do I give a Christmas card to? Who do I buy presents for? Oh, groceries are high. And there's so many things that can distract us. And there's so many things that are going on around us that sometimes we're not even aware of what Christmas is about. What do we even celebrate? What is it all about? Well, a great thing that we can celebrate today is that Jesus moved into the neighborhood. And we're going to look at a passage in John 1. It's familiar to us. And I want to just unpack a couple of thoughts about this idea of Jesus moving into your neighborhood. What that could look like. And John 1 tells us right off the beginning that Jesus was the plan from the beginning. This idea of sin, that world would be fallen, that things around us would go chaotic and crazy and be messed up was no surprise to God. He knew and he had a plan. See, we have to remember that Jesus has existed since the beginning of time. That's what John 1 tells us. That Jesus was there. And he calls him that the Word was with God and the Word was God. This is a reference to Jesus, and the Greek word that we get here is logos. And logos, actually, if you define it, is the words of God. Jesus is the words of God. When he came to this earth, he appeared to give and share the words of God, the plans of God. What was this plan from the beginning? And John 1 tells us that when Jesus showed up in the very beginning, even though he was born into a Jewish family and he came and was around Jewish people, they didn't recognize him. And they had been waiting for him to come for many, many years. And here he was, and they didn't even recognize him because they didn't understand that this was the plan, that he was going to come as a human being. See, they were looking for someone that was more godlike. But Jesus came as an ordinary human being. But don't underestimate that this ordinary human being was fully God. And he was coming to proclaim that I have the answer. I have the solution. I am coming to be your Savior. But this was from the beginning of time. Jesus has always been there. In the beginning, Jesus was there. He was with God. He has always been God. And he was the plan from the beginning. And now he's here, but people didn't even recognize him. But then it tells us that there was a group of people that accepted him and believed his message. And friends, because of that, what we can see here now is John tells us that there is reason to celebrate. It tells us in John 1 a little bit about who John was. And John was his sole responsibility when he was born to his parents Zachariah and Elizabeth. So this is going back before Jesus was born. There was this guy named John, and they called him John the Baptist or the Baptizer because most of his ministry was that he performed water baptism. But he was always talking about there is one coming that is greater than I am. And you might think that how could he be so confident? How could he be so sure that he can talk about this guy who he's never even met? Could you imagine that you would be saying nice things about someone that you haven't even met before? Well, if you look at Luke, John the Baptist was a divine mission from God. He was appointed by God. And even the Old Testament speaks about in Isaiah that he was going to be the one crying in the wilderness, declaring that Jesus is coming. See, he was on a divine mission. God appointed John the Baptist to be the forerunner, or to be the person who would go before Jesus and tell him he's coming. He was like the setup man that said, hey, I'm good, but guess what? There's a guy that's coming that's even greater. And so John 1, really when we read it, should give us cause and reason for celebration. Because Jesus came to the earth. Jesus was there. The words of God came in human flesh to this earth. And he is for all people. And so you have a choice. You can, like we said before, you can either reject him and say, I don't know him, or you can accept him and embrace him as the one who can change your life, who has the greatest plan for you. That gives us reason to celebrate. And then, like I talked about, Jesus moved into the neighborhood. It said that he came. The Message translation in John 1 basically says those exact words, that Jesus moved into the neighborhood. Jesus came and dwelt among us, friends. He came, so he knows what it means to feel pain and hurt and heartache. He had to learn. He cried when he was a baby. He had to memorize the Torah as a young boy and as a teenager. He went through all those difficulties of teenagers, and then as an adult, and this idea of leaving home and going out on his own and beginning the ministry. And he lived among us, friends. He ate and slept and was among us. He did miracles. He did great and mighty things. But what you have to recognize is that he wants to move into your neighborhood. He wants to be in your house, in your life. But we need to accept it. And so we have a choice. John 1 shows us that we have a choice. We can either see Jesus around us and recognize who he is, but still reject him and say, I don't need him in my life. I'm okay on my own. Or we can say, man, I am so glad that you are here and I accept you. I want you in my life. So that's the decision we have to make, friends, this Christmas as we read through John chapter 1. As we see that Jesus was the plan from the beginning, that Jesus gives us reason to celebrate, that someone is greater is coming than me, as John the Baptist said, and that he's wanting to move into your neighborhood. He wants to be there, but you have a choice. You can accept him, accept Jesus, or you can reject him. And I hope today that you will let Jesus move into your neighborhood.